ready to begin, I look forward to hearing what you have to ask us today. Please begin your communication when you're ready.
Hello, welcome back. What would you like to start off by telling us today that we need to know? We just finished the summer solstice, and we're into summer now in the Northern Hemisphere.
You're going to be moving through some intense energies, particularly over the next couple of months. There is building fear on your planet, but also great lifts and shifts in the vibrations. There are many of you that are beginning to tune in to higher frequencies and allow them to move through and resonate outwards. This is bringing an interesting time for humans as you go through this paradigm shift, as you experience the turbulence that is caused as some vibrations lift and some lower. There has never been more of an interaction between dark and light, high and low frequency energy than there is at the moment, which is why so much of it seems chaotic to you. But this is happening because you are going through this transformation. Many of your bodies are being affected by the different energies that are coming through. And many of you are starting to notice unusual events, changes within yourself, increased telepathy as your vibrations shift into the fifth dimension.
Are there things that we can do to help assist?
Now is a time where you must be more aware of your ability to work collectively. There are more of you beginning to do this, beginning to actually understand the reasons that you've been put into connection with your soul tribes. Some of you don't necessarily recognise these interactions when they happen, others of you are more acutely aware of it. But still there is a lot of working separately due to the nature of your reality in the frequency that you're in the dimension that you exist within. That is gradually starting to change and will happen more quickly over the next coming months. Understanding the power that you have individually is important. Understanding the power that you have collectively is paramount. For your frequency can shift and shift so many others and alter the experience of reality and the actual dimensional plane that you live in. There have been examples recently of people predicting events or seeing things that have already happened, seeing anomalies such as birds moving out of the sky, things disappearing and reappearing, finding strange occurrences in places and anomalies. And that is all to do with these shifts in frequency. Some of you are actually experiencing brief hops from one dimension to another. You have the ability to collectively hop and remain in a different dimension, one that is of a higher frequency. It takes a mass amount of energy to do that on a more permanent basis. And as you connect and work with each other, you are starting to uncover the tools to be able to create that shift. And this will greatly divide those who are experiencing different realities. It's not something that you need to fear or feel polarized by, because you will move into the frequency that you are in alignment with. So gradually you will see less of this polarized reality. You will see less of this aggression from one side to another, of the ideas of war and disagreement and disharmony, because you will naturally move towards the frequency of existence towards the dimension that you are called and pulled to live in. And when that happens, you will be in resonance with those that already reside within it.
You talk quite often about frequencies, and how are they measured? Is it specific numbers or something else? Like how can we measure? Is it like the sound of hertz, or is it a different measurement?
For the purpose of human measurement, yes, it's the sound of hertz, so it's the speed, so the frequency that something vibrates at. To us, we feel it slightly differently. It is more of a sense. So, in the dimension that we reside in here, we are in a very light body most of the time. So, any shift in the frequencies around us move the particles, move the waves that make up our light body. So we just feel these kind of subtle changes, and we feel them if they are much bigger changes. This is actually why some of the actions that are made by humans on your planet create huge effects on other galactic races. We're in a finer body, we're in a less dense state. So if you, for example, detonate an atomic bomb, that affects our frequency and we feel it in a much more sensitive way, then you are able to feel it in your more dense human body. So we do not measure it by numbers, we measure it by how it affects our actual light body, which is as much of our physical form as we usually experience. But for you as humans, yes, the frequency is numbers.
And does each human have an individual frequency range?
Yes, and that's what we talk about when we give you the idea of lifting a vibration or changing a frequency. It's about learning how to align yourself. So firstly, you have a vibration that you genuinely resonate, and the effects and the experiences that you have affect that frequency and that vibration. So for us, we would feel a great difference if we lived in such an emotional state as humans tend to. We would feel our light bodies, our energy bodies being greatly affected, but we don't have such an emotional state of being in this dimension. Humans experience a lot of the changes of frequency as intense emotions, and in this way your emotions act as a kind of portal to shifting your frequency. So when you have very painful emotions and you feel like you're in turmoil, that's because your frequency is lowering. When you have very high, happy emotions, you feel joy and you feel abundance, that's when your frequency is lifting. But most of the time you'll have a kind of resonance that is your semi-permanent state of being. It can be changed and altered permanently too. However, you generally kind of plateau at one vibration with small peaks and troughs as you have your human experiences. As you learn to connect to your higher self, move into your light body when you wish to, learn how to use your telepathy, you begin to learn how to raise your vibration so that it starts to resonate on a more permanent basis at a higher frequency. And that is how you experience more of the same thing, because you attract it to you.
Thank you.
So you've been talking about telepathy, which I'm quite interested. So how can we, as humans, with the knowledge you might have and we don't have, how can we, which tools, or how can we practice our telepathy, and I don't know, how can we be a bit better into that?
You begin by making your connection to your soul team once you become acutely aware of them, not just in moments of meditation, but Actively asking them for their help throughout the day will help to bring you into more alignment with them. They won't intervene with anything unless you ask them to. So that's one of the first practices to become familiar with and to use frequently. Most of you have a go at this and you do it for a little while, and then you get sidetracked and you do something else and you forget that they're there, and then you come back into alignment with them, but they are always there to help you. So if you can make it a habit, even if you need to set yourself little reminders throughout your day to ask them to come in and work through you, especially when you're struggling with your emotions or your human reality. Firstly, that will get you into that kind of contact with them and allow you to see and be aware of the moments where you have used your telepathy, you have actually tuned into these skills. So most of you are having telepathic moments all of the time, but you don't notice a lot of them. They just are flickers. They drift past you so quickly, so you don't see them for the little miracles that they are. But once you are aware that they're happening more often, then you start to see them for what they are, and then begin to learn how to use them as a gift. One of the hugest things that is impossible for many humans to get past, although is becoming easier, is the trust in your own ability, in your own telepathy. So most of you will perceive something, then your ego mind will come straight in and question it and make you doubt that you have the ability to tune in the way that you do. There are also other ways that you can begin to practice the other telepathic gifts, such as psychokinesis and what you would call mind reading, or being able to perceive things visually with your eyes closed. Again, they are all just forgotten skills, so the more that you begin to just do little exercises to tune yourself into this ability, the faster you will be able to learn to use it on a permanent basis. Don't be deterred if the first few times you try something like this, it doesn't work for you, because your ego mind is asking you to jump back down into your human body, not to rise too high in case you leave it. But you won't. You won't fall and lose your human body by practicing these abilities. You just have a lot of programming from multiple generations that goes back for hundreds of thousands of years that has asked you not to have these abilities anymore. So it just takes a lot of breaking through the different barriers, the different social structures and belief systems that have been instilled on you for many years. That's why the more that you practice it, the more quickly you become able to use it and become aware that you have these abilities.
How, so you also talk before about keeping our frequency high. So again, I'm a bit practical this session. I want to know how can we get into this state of high vibration instead of being more in the low frequency vibrating.
This is a difficult thing for humans to move past. Again, similarly with the telepathy, because you just have so many years of programming that takes you out of that joyful state, that makes you question. You have a moment of joy or a moment of feeling that you're in a flow state, and very quickly something else comes in to change that. So we do understand that this is not something that you can necessarily just jump straight into, and it takes practice. Doing meditation practices and connecting with your higher self and your soul team will help you to begin to shift each time you make those connections. And the more times that you make those connections, the more times that you feel that guidance, even if it's just for a few moments, the more that you'll actually start to bring that in on a more permanent basis into your life, because you become aware of it. It's like with anything else. If you are aware of something, then you experience it as reality. If you're not aware of something, then you don't. So you can tune in, you can do your meditations. Doing other practices that use the earth to expand your energy will also help to raise your frequency too, because Earth's frequency itself is lifting, and you have come in as a human to have human incarnation for the multiple benefits that this offers. So there is the opportunity to experience emotions, which raises your frequency, as I previously described. But there is also the fact that Earth itself and the resonance and the frequency that she holds is able to affect yours directly. So when you do something such as swim in the ocean or walk through the woods, you naturally expand your energy. And the more often that you do that, the more that that becomes a permanent resonance. There does come an element of learning how to focus your thoughts, which again can be a very difficult thing. You get pulled into that chatter of the mind that brings you into the egoic self and into the doubts of your own ability, your own connection, and your own place in this planet, the power that you have infinitely within you. But you can overcome this. It just sometimes will take a little more time for some of you than it does for others. For you, I believe that sacred geometry, the art of practicing drawing certain patterns, will become a useful tool in raising your frequency. If you are able to spend some time just making these designs on your own in some quiet time, that will help to start to shift you. Those patterns and connecting with them are a way that you are able to lift your own and move out of the focused chatter of the mind on the negative.
Yeah, I got another question. I like to see your vision and perspectives about how humans we try to go through this life, and we use religion systems to kind of go through this life. How do you see, from your perspective, religion and the different systems we go? It's something we can kind of, it's gonna help us to in this life, or how do you see these different religion systems under your opinion?
So, firstly, we just need to explain that we don't have an opinion in the way that you perceive that truth. We have an understanding of how humanity has been affected and how your vibration is changed by the experience of religion. And this is a complex issue because for many people, there are moments where religion really brings them into very high vibration and moments of ecstasy and joy. As people discover and awaken to new religions and new religious movements, they can end up in very, very ecstatic states. The thing that we would observe, however, is that these states can be very fleeting. So when somebody becomes very attached to a belief system, they feel ecstatic and elated. Their vibration is lifted for a short while, but then when they're not able to sustain that more permanently, then they need to go to the external sources such as the priest or practitioner or the textbook, whatever the guidance is seen as being the most commonly accepted. And they look to that source in order to try and bring them back into a state of high vibration, but that source is often not able to provide that because unfortunately there has been misuse of some of those high frequencies that were brought in to create these structured systems to start with. So learning to tune in without needing the aid of another, without needing a textbook or a person to facilitate that for you, will always bring you into the opportunity to remain in a much higher vibrational state. But we do not wish to inform you that choosing a religious path is a negative one, because as we said, it can really awaken people to very high states to begin with. It's just the aftercare, the understanding of how to maintain that state that has become lost. When figures such as Christ and Buddha initially put their teachings about. They were teaching people how to interpret their words in a way that could lift them in a permanent way, in a way that could help others to understand that the source energy, that the God particle, the component that makes you the energy of the universe, is within you and you can always access it. But unfortunately, through the human experience, for ways that will create emotion and teach people and change the dynamic of the human story, there have been many who have come in and taken out the purity from these teachings. You must be careful about making judgments over these people. They are many who have had, as you would perceive, evil actions. They have prevented the growth of others through their corruption of these systems. But without these darknesses, without these dark times, these sometimes awful experiences that humans have had, you would not have been given the opportunity to grow and learn. So it can be a difficult thing to come in as a negative character in the human story, but those characters come in order for the balance of light and dark to be able to be played out and for you to all experience the emotional range that you have, which gives you the frequency range that you have. As a human, you would not notice your joy and abundance if it was not comparative to not having it, which is why sometimes those who have what you would see as plenty are often in very low vibrational states. So going back to the idea of religion, we believe that you should be aware that you have all of those abilities within you. You have the ability to make that connection to source energy and you do not need it from an external source. But a little bit like taking hallucinogenics, for some they are unable to access it without something causing the trigger. It's just the caution should always be practiced, because for both drugs and religion there are always those that will misuse that and also won't know how to interpret the energies correctly in a way that keeps you safe and keeps you connected to source.
Um, I'd like to ask you also, is there any way we can use the history we had as a humans and it can help us to look at the future and yeah, kind of how to say, as we are kind of shifting into the fifth dimension and looking back at history and trying to fix what we have done, it could be something we can use for the next dimension, the dimension of that jump into that.
This is a more complicated subject because you have you can learn from the events of the past, but it can also be that focusing on the events of the past actually calls through some of that energy. So if you imagine your own incarnations, the multiple ones that you have had, except they're all playing out concurrently. So each time you remember a past life, it's usually because you are connected to the energy of that past life. And therefore, you need to release the energy that's keeping you connected if it's something that's holding you back. And usually, when you remember those past life experiences, it's because that is the case. So this can happen with history too. Whilst you can learn lessons from it, actually humans in their behaviours and the things that drive them, they are often so driven by fear that looking at something as an example of the past and thinking, oh, we should not be doing that because it was a terrible thing, when it comes to any kind of conflict situation or a moment where a human is faced with something that makes them move into a state of fear, they find it difficult to overcome just by knowledge and rationality alone. So you can look at everything that's happened in the past, all the terrible things, and realize in your logical mind that they are something that you wish not to repeat. But if you were in a moment where you felt incredibly threatened, human behavior is much human behavior. There are some who will behave in a way that is uplifting and helpful and kind to others, and there are some that will behave in a way that is opposite to that. Often they may have gone through their whole life being a kind, helpful person, but when someone is in a state of extreme fear, they don't necessarily behave like that. So, whilst your history teaches you many things about where you have been, it's the same with playing into old memories. So, when you are doing a conventional kind of therapy, as a human, you go over an event that's happened and you go over it many, many times, quite often, in order to try and find some purpose or meaning in it. But actually, you're just bringing yourself back into the energy of that moment or that event. So there are reasons why humans do not remember everything. Some of you try very strongly to recall the great details of moments from your past. But if something is particularly difficult to remember, it may be that you are not able to heal the trauma from it yet at this time. Maybe you will remember it at a later time when you are able to integrate that experience and use it to ascend, to lift your own frequency. But if you are having trouble recalling how an event played out now, then it's because you are not ready to make that transformation or to acknowledge that yet. And that the same happens with your history. So, for example, the history of Atlantis is something that is coming around a lot, and many of you are starting to have past life memories of that event. The reason that you weren't able to have those memories earlier on is because you would have found them too traumatic, and they wouldn't have served you, they wouldn't have served the ascension process, they would have just brought you down. Whereas now you're remembering them, some of them can be quite unsettling, but you are not remembering them and creating the same fear and hormone based response. Your body is not physically reacting in the same way as it would have done if you'd maybe remembered this 500 years ago. So each thing comes round when it's relevant for it to be transformed and healed.
I like to ask you about past lives. So, how is your understanding about past lives? So, as you're saying now, you've been talking about that, like we kind of we get them when if they kind of serve us in these lives. So, do we make the connections necessary with my past, with our past lives, in order to serve us in this life, and then kind of progress? And how can we access to these pieces of information in a personal way? Because I like to be more, as you say, like kind of the power is inside us, instead of looking for other people to give us this reassurance. And I guess the problem I always face is my ego mind kind of saying, oh, this is not right, this is you are delusional, blah blah. So how can I trust more my instinct and myself, and how can I override this ego mind?
So again, this is a recurring difficulty that humans have, is learning to trust their own intuition. If you can't trust your visions of your past lives, just try and begin by some of the more basic telepathic practices, such as predicting that somebody is going to phone you. You know, you get that sensation that a certain person is going to call you, and they do. You manifest a parking space by asking for one. You think of an event and manage to create that event very quickly. You are able to know what your child is thinking or feeling. So those little level ones, and you can move up into trying to possibly work with a partner and anticipate or to read in through your telepathy something that they are thinking about, or maybe a picture that they draw for you. If you are having trouble with just allowing yourself to trust, then just doing it in this small way with humans will help you to begin to trust in that journey. When Jessica was initially doing her psychic development, she found that she was able to recall details about other people's houses or specific objects that they had that she had no knowledge of, and that gave her enough of a confidence in her own ability to read to then take that further. So beginning in that way is helpful. If you feel that you cannot just allow whatever visions that you see for your past lives to, and take them at face value. Whilst we do strongly believe that you should recover your knowledge of source and energy within yourself and your own abilities, finding practitioners that can just help you to remember your past lives to begin with, if that's something that you wish to explore and wish to heal, just to get you into that state, will make that journey a little bit easier, because so often as humans you find it easier to allow somebody else to facilitate something like that, because their egoic mind doesn't come into it. They are seeing something in a pure way. Even practitioners that have been working for a long time and have huge success with their clients in recalling past lives or telepathic information struggle with their own insight because their egoic mind still steps into it. It's something that you will always have to learn how to allow to happen and recognize when it's happening so that it doesn't overtake the process. If you have some experiences of your past lives through working with somebody else, once they're able to uncover the energy that is affecting your current life now, then you will start to become more naturally attuned to the past life anyway. And then by tuning into one, you should find that as you do meditation processes, or sometimes even through your sleep, you'll start to get more details of either that particular past life experiences or other ones that have come up for you. You have a natural, very strong incarnation in ancient Egypt, which is playing in now. You're in a position that was more powerful than in many of your other previous incarnations. There was a lot of abundance at that time, but some of it was lost under quite fearful and stressful circumstances, and that's making it difficult for you to allow the flow of abundance to happen now. That was only a momentary glimpse of one for you, but it was quite a strong image and understanding of that incarnation that you have previously had. But once again, we like to stress that it is not previously, because from the perspective that we have, time is running all concurrently. There isn't a past and a future. All events are happening and their energies play into each other all of the time, which is why you feel those energies in that moment.
Thank you. I like also to share with you some of my main worries about humanity at the moment and our humans, and is the advent of the artificial intelligence. And I'm learning and researching and kind of having a dark forecast of the future, uh, partially contaminated by this artificial intelligence. But yeah, I mean, and we are at this point that I guess it could go both way, for the good and the bad. How is your understanding in this matter?
Imagine how when you're doing your psychic work, you can tune into higher vibrations and you can tune into lower ones. Sometimes you can go into doing a practice or a meditation or a group, and an entity that you do not wish to welcome comes in, and you can allow it in, or you can choose to protect yourself from it energetically, which is easier to do when you're in a higher vibration. Apply that in the same way to this understanding of the artificial intelligence. Those that you pay your attention to and that you allow in and that you allow to come into your life will have more power and control over you than you may like sometimes, than you may be comfortable with. Whereas if you have the feeling that a particular tool is going to be useful for you, then your interaction with it is already at a higher frequency, and therefore your interaction with it is going to be more positive. There has been definitely fed into your human consciousness this perception that the artificial intelligence is going to take over and be able to dominate you all. This has been strongly put through to you through makings of films, through books, through media and popular culture. And there are elements to that that were deliberate in order to, when the advancement of AI came about, to make many of you submissive to it because you feel that you don't have a power. But it really is no different to how you allow entities or energies to permeate your energetic frequency. Just because you see it as a more physical thing, that's only because human experience is a very physical thing. But when you learn to experience your humanity through a more energetic state, then those energetic beings or entities have just as much capability to come in should you choose to let them. So if you can compare the two, that may give you the idea that where you do not pay your attention to this fear with the artificial intelligence, then you don't allow your frequency to be lifted, and you don't allow their interactions and their effects to come into you personally so much. You may find that there are many other humans that do allow those things to come in because they're in low states to begin with, so they approach those technologies as a way to try and lift their own frequency, but actually all it's going to do is lower it. But as you go through this time, particularly over the next couple of months and throughout the next couple of years, this is going to be a very conducive time for the energies of humans to become more aware and awake and to be able to tune in to higher vibrations. Many of those who have got sucked into it in the beginning will be able to find their way out.
Are you okay to carry on? Are you...
Yes, you can have more questions.
Do you have any more messages for Jess for her journey in the next couple of months? We're going more public.
Jessica struggles with the same issues of ego and self-belief as the rest of you do, and that's something that she is processing and working through. She has also been having to learn at the moment to not try and guess or try and control too much the way that things are going to play out for her. So we have been working with this teacher to be more present in the moment, to allow the energies to flow through and present the opportunities as they are due to come. But she still has these moments of feeling the frustration or the fear that something will not work in a certain way. There are creative processes that are going on that are changing that and changing that dynamic and uplifting her frequency so she can be more open to the abundance that's coming forward. So the same as many of you humans have, doesn't matter how much you practice and tune in, there is always work that you can do, and there is always a step closer that you can get to feeling your source energy and to feeling in that high abundant state, because you're here as a human to have a human experience, and you, whilst you wish to often be in those highest states of being, you also need to have those emotional ranges and those experiences in order to grow and to learn that energy which you feed back into the universe also.
How can we trust more? Because I think a lot of this information, like about you and about the different star systems and God or energy, is not what we've been brought up with. and I think sometimes we trust it and sometimes we don't. And how can we, perhaps that would ease our nerves as we go through this, to trust more.
Indeed, it's coming back to that idea of taking the small steps. So recognizing the small things that happen, which maybe you do, but you often do it sometimes, and then you move into a state where you forget and you lose your ability to recognize those miracle moments that are going on for you all of the time. So again, we say if you can bring in small things to remind you, whether it's leaving yourself notes, setting yourself reminders, a good use of your technologies that you have. You can create alarms that tell you to bring yourself back into a present moment, to ask yourself each day how the universe can provide for you when you wake up in the morning, allowing that opens you up to allowing the energy from source to come through into you. But it is a process that takes learning, and there is an impatience amongst humanity to be able to suddenly shift and be in a whole new state of consciousness straight away, which is becoming easier because of the events that are going on and the frequencies that are coming through and the movements of your planet through the cosmos. But again, we say you are here to have a human experience. So if you completely shifted into a state where you had absolute trust and understanding of your pureness, of your light energy, of being in source, then there would actually be less relevance in you continuing the human experience. So finding the balance between these, like finding the balance between the light and the dark that's playing out in the mass consciousness of humanity, is still a useful tool because it allows you to actually change the resonance that you're in. You will learn as you focus more often on the synchronicities that come into your life, how to remain in that state more often. But many of you will do the odd meditation, you'll go for the odd swim, you'll do something momentarily that helps to lift your frequency and helps to bring you into a state of I trust this, and then you'll not do it again for quite a while. So making something a common practice, maybe giving yourself some strict instructions to do so several times a week. Do your meditation, step into that space where you are able to move out of the mind chatter and the egoic self, will help you to become more aligned with that way of behaving, and then your behavior becomes a personality, and that is what you begin to attract. So if your behavior is negative and your thought process is negative, then that's a personality that you're going to bring through as well, and that's what you're going to attract. If your behavior and your thought processes that cause that behavior are more positive, and you can bring yourself into a more permanent state with that, then again you shift into a personality that is more positive and you experience more of those things. We do understand that this is a challenging experience for you, particularly at the moment because you are going through such massive shifts in energy. There are huge moments of density. Understanding as well that collectively, because of the events that are going on your planet, bearing in mind that many people are not yet attuned to those higher parts of themselves, there is a lot of fear going on. So many of the anxieties and things that you feel, although they can feel very personal to you, are a result of your reading, of your resonance, of your aura being able to pick up the fear and the anxiety that is coming from others. Then your mind, your ego, starts to attribute it with reasons for why you feel that way in particular. So bringing your awareness as often as you can to those realities, if for you it feels true and it resonates, will help you to begin to shift out of that by recognizing that the energies that you sometimes experience are not necessarily just your own. The thoughts are not necessarily just your own. You can start to actually step into what is more truly aligned with yourself and your thoughts. And then that becomes your personality.
Thank you. I wonder sort of like just practically like how big are our auras, like how many meters or miles, and how much percentage approximately is our own energy, and how much is that infiltrated with someone else's energy or collective?
Your aura can extend to somewhat of about 20 meters, but most of the time is only a couple as you go through the expansions and contractions. When you are feeling in a very high flow state, when you feel like things are happening easily for you, you have those days where everything just seems to align. That's usually the days where your energy is in a very expansive state. Now, there can be multiple factors that come into that cause it to be expanded or contracted. Again, a lot of who you have been around and who you have associated with. Most of your energy is purely your own, but it's the thoughts that are able to create, or the thoughts create almost a physical form that can kind of reside like little globules in your energy, and they just kind of float about around you, and that's what you are perceiving in your energy field, but that is not actually making up your own energy. Your own energy comes purely from you.
Okay, thank you. Does no one else want to ask anything? I wanted to ask about Brighton specifically. Just it's got quite a mixed energy and heavy energy, and because I'm going there, like I feel mixed feelings as well. What's the sort of purpose?
The fact that you have a fear and an anxiety over this situation is going to create a little more of that for you. So it's likely that you're going to find it quite challenging when you get there if you can't bring yourself into awareness that much of the fear and anxiety that you're feeling is created by the egoic mind. So if you're able to bring yourself into a state where you can perceive that a lot of those fears are external and through previous experiences that have actually no bearance on whether you're going to experience the same thing this time, then you will approach the situation from a different perspective. Any any experience that you have as a human where you expect it to be a certain way, where you expect it to possibly be difficult for you or harmful for you or draining for you, then you've already stepped into that dimensional reality. This is, of course, not necessarily easy to just remove yourself from because you have previous experiences, but doing as much as you can, firstly, to remove yourself from the intensity of energies by being away from crowds of people as much as you're able to remove yourself from them, will help you to not absorb too much more of the same experience. But by trying to tune in to your own guidance and ask for your soul team to come and help to protect you and to bring you into a higher state of mind before you go to these places, will just begin to gradually shift the dimension of which you go into this experience.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
think that's everything for today.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
joining
coming
us.
through with your questions and for bringing this wisdom, this knowledge, and our vibration, our understanding and perception through to those amongst you, for bringing it through into human consciousness. And best luck with your journeys.
Thank you. And thank you.